Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. Let's talk boxing. We're going to talk about Edgar Berlanga and his performance against Jason Quigley. Where does he stand compared to his rivals around him? We'll talk about that. We'll get technical. I also want to talk about the really fun fireworks fight between Kownacki and Cusumano, and maybe where Eddie Hearn can be quite creative and make some really fun undercard fights for someone like Giuseppe Cusumano. So we'll talk about that. I also want to quickly touch upon the fact that Kazuto Ioka became the WBA super flyweight title holder. He won the vacant belt. Joshua Franco wasn't able to win it because he came in overweight, and it was a unanimous decision victory. I've yet to see the fight. I will watch it and then give my opinion and talk about the division in a wider context later in the week. I also want to quickly say that I've started a little online Twitter petition, and I'm going to put the actual tweet in the description box of the video down below. I've basically copied in PBC and Steven Espinosa, and I'm getting people to like and retweet it for support to try and get some things changed and moving in order to get the PBC content available to us here in the UK. Nobody wants to be out there trying to look for illegal streams, maybe getting viruses on their laptops and stuff like that. Give us the opportunity to observe your content. It suits us as fight fans, and it suits you because your assets are then basically advertised to a wider audience. That's how you have to grow these assets. So why are you stunting your own growth? It makes no sense. Make a deal with somebody, ITV, or even if it's your YouTube channel. On occasions, you used to put it up for UK fans. Do it every single card you put out there. What is the problem? Allow us to see your product. But in terms of that fight, Julian Williams was stopped in the 9th round. A lot of people are going ballistic about it being a premature stoppage. I've not seen the fight, so I can't say, I can't really observe it from the context of its entirety. But in terms of the stoppage itself, if it was a nip and tuck fight and just that stoppage happened, because I've seen the last 30 seconds because Showtime had put out the clip on Twitter, it would have been premature, because although J-Rock wasn't throwing anything back, or it had nothing on it when he was, and he looked very ragged and uncomfortable, there weren't many big flush shots landing. Having said that, if he's been taking a pasting up to that point and he can't really win the fight, it's not in the balance, and he doesn't have the momentum, then I can see why the referee said, you know what, you ain't winning this fight. You're only going to get progressively more hurt from here. You're not showing me anything, so I'm going to step in. So I can't pass judgment on that until I see the fight in its entirety. Now, let's talk about the DAZN card. First and foremost, let's talk about Berlanga. You know, a lot of people used to overreact to Berlanga and hype him up. When he was destroying everybody in round 1, people were saying this guy is dangerous, a new Puerto Rican superstar. And I was out here saying, slow your roll. There are a lot of technical errors here. This guy is not the star you're making him up to be. He's essentially a prospect, a rough diamond, and he needs to be built up. Now, I find myself defending Berlanga because people have reacted so far the other way that they're going nuts about it, right? It's an exaggeration in what it is that people are saying that they see. I'll give you a little analogy, right? A number of years ago when I was back at uni, I was out with my then girlfriend and her friends and one or two of their boyfriends, and we were in a group. And there was this, there's this actor who shall remain nameless, and one of the girls in the group said, oh my God, he's so good looking. And my girlfriend pulled a face. Now bear in mind, we're talking about a Hollywood actor, right? And she pulled a face. So the other girl says, what, you don't think so? And my girl said, definitely not. And they started this discussion. And at one point, my girlfriend drops the phrase, no way, I'm sorry, he's ugly. Now, at this point, I start feeling embarrassed. I'm like, babe, slow your roll, right? You can't be calling this man ugly and then dating me. You know, and listen, I wasn't always the fat dude that I am now. I was an all right dude back then, but there are levels. You're talking about a Hollywood actor, right? And it just became this really embarrassing moment. But what she meant is not really that he's ugly, but I guess he's ugly compared to other Hollywood stars. There's context that needs to be applied. And when you are analyzing the likes of Berlanga, you're ultimately talking about a guy who was once really touted highly. Now he's not rated highly anymore, and people are comparing him to other Hollywood actors, so to speak. When you compare him to Canelo Alvarez, and there was talk of that fight happening, he's got no chance. He'd get absolutely folded in half. But if you observe him as a guy with some good physical attributes, who's developing and who's working on things, he's really not the worst fighter. You see, Jason Quigley was able to cause him a lot of problems with a lot of feints, level changes, which were very, very good. And Berlanga was trying to walk in with quite a wide stance, and he'd have this high guard. And he's waiting on Quigley, and he's trying to time him. And with that high guard, with that level change, because there's that opening through the middle, even when he's bringing these gloves together, it's like a triangle, right? There's an opening through the base of it, so to speak. So Quigley would come low and then shoot the up jab through the base of that triangle and be landing on him, and he'd be mixing it up with a feint in order to do it. And that was offsetting the rhythm of Berlanga. And off of that level change, he'd also start to throw power punches. So Berlanga would start to get, he went from being too technical early on and trying to box with him to being a little bit reckless and trying to run in on him at times. If you're going to run in on him, you have to disguise the entry point. And so when he was trying to run in on him, he was getting clipped a little bit when he would be stepping in. So the movement and the feints, the upper body movement, the changes of levels, they were causing him problems. There was a moment in the fight, I can't remember what round it was, where Jason Quigley was up towards the ropes and Berlanga led with a 2-1. He leapt in with a backhand and then came with the jab. And the jab really landed flush. It was almost like a power shot because he's leaping in, he's throwing this 2-1. Because that entry surprised Quigley, that's when he started to land something big. So he had to do two things. He had to be more unpredictable with your entry point. And the other thing is, because you realize that Quigley's changing the level, you have to essentially read that and preempt it and change the trajectory of your punches. When he dropped Quigley, it seemed to me like, right, he's finally read that change of level. He's seeing this is what Quigley's doing, keeps dipping to his right hand side, he's getting low, so he threw this left uppercut and then chopping right hand down and he dropped him. So I'm thinking, okay, there you go, there's your adjustment. But then what started to happen is, as Quigley's still sort of backpedaling, getting himself onto the ropes at times, Berlanga, because he was getting caught on his entry, instead of being creative with the variation of entry, he started to become more tentative. And there was one moment where he had Quigley up on the ropes and he's coming in, he's got the left hand high up and he's got the right palm facing the opponent. He's looking to engage potentially with the lead hand before going off, before leading off with an attack. And he's waiting, and Quigley's trying to buy time. So by waiting, you're giving him that time. He finally makes the move, Quigley sees that move, and you see the level change again. And so he misses his shot. So I'm sitting there thinking, didn't you learn from when you dropped him? Aren't you thinking in the ring as to what's going on here? You've seen he's looking for that level change to evade your punch. So feint to get him to react, and then throw the shot. Alternatively, lead off with a low shot, a trajectory that's low. If you're going to throw a left shovel hook, for instance, if he stands upright, you're going to come with that left shovel hook, almost like an uppercut, underneath the elbow. If he does dip, so if he doesn't stay tall when he does dip, he's going to dip into the shot. If he's got a tight guard and he falls into it to smother it, you're still landing something on the body. So you stabilize him. That might not be a scoring shot, but because you've landed something and he's dipped low, he's either going to look to counter you, or he's just going to look to try to evade the secondary shot. Either way, you know that you've stabilized him. So from there, you can go with your second phase of attack. So there were just certain things that he wasn't doing enough of, in my opinion, in terms of his decision making. Now, he has been out for a very long time. Jason Quigley was looking slicker than he's looked in the past. So maybe that played a role too. But you also have to understand, Quigley was a good amateur fighter. He's got some good wins at amateur level, right? The point is that if you're going to be up against a technical boxer, why are you trying to technically box him early on? I know you're working on some things, but that doesn't really suit you. Then later on, when you realize I'm being outboxed, let's say he wanted to work on things, right? When you realize I'm being outboxed at times, why are you then panicking and rushing in? Surely, okay, you've realized I've tried to work on a few things. Now I'm going to turn this into a physical fight. Don't panic. He started to panic a little bit. So I don't know if it was inactivity, if it was, the corner at points were just shouting at him, what are you doing? There wasn't much from what we could pick up on from the mic, right? I don't know if that was always accurate, but from what I could pick up on, it didn't seem like there was much technical advice being given to him in that moment, or rather not much tactical advice. The point is, Berlanga is heavy-handed and he's got some really good attributes, but he's also not hard to find, particularly through that high guard. He can be a little bit tentative. You can make him think, and we've spoken about this in the past, that he's a sort of guy whereby since getting dropped, he thinks a little bit more, he's more tentative, but he's not as bad as people are making out. I do want to see him again in the ring. He would have had no chance against Canelo. Against the movers, there's all this talk about Billy Joe Saunders coming back. That could really sell, because you've got Billy Joe with the British fight fans behind him. You're going to have the Puerto Ricans behind Berlanga. You know that Billy Joe is going to get under his skin and he's going to talk a lot of rubbish. The build-up could be brilliant. But if Billy is still the guy he used to be, and that's a big if, because we know he's taken damage and we also have no idea what he's going to be like when he comes back to the ring, because he's just not living the life. But if he's that same sort of guy, then Berlanga has no real chance. He's going to get schooled by Billy Joe Saunders. Munguia is a different matter because he can be touched. So Berlanga's heavy-handed offense is going to meet Munguia's, let's say, not great defense, but the opposite also exists. So you've got two guys with an offensive arsenal against two guys that are easy to hit. Munguia, though, is the more technically astute. He's the better fighter. So even that, I don't think is going to go well for Berlanga. In other words, he's got some good attributes, but he does need some work. But I'm all for the Munguia fight, Mexico versus Puerto Rico. It would be a fun fight. Let me know what you think about Berlanga's performance and how you think that fight would go. Moving on from that, let's talk about the fireworks at heavyweight between the Sicilian Nightmare, Giuseppe Cusumano, and Adam Kownacki. Kownacki was really fighting for his career here. He'd lost 3 on the bounce, but he was still considered the hot favourite against Cusumano. And I felt personally that Cusumano was going to win the fight. I thought we would get an upset on the cards here. And the reason is because I think people overreacted a little bit to Cusumano's defeat at the hands of Daniel Dubois. Dubois is a world-class heavyweight. I know a lot of people sort of run him down a little bit, and it's the popular thing to do. He got hurt by Lorena. He quit against Joe Joyce and stuff like that. Listen, he's a little bit stiff in the back, but his feet are fantastic. He's got brilliant jab, and he's a big puncher. And so he's able, with some attributes that are top class, to just decimate a guy who's not at that level at all. And Cusumano is not at that level. So people look at that and say, he got dropped 3 times. This guy's a bum. But like I said, everyone's got attributes to certain degrees, to certain levels. Cusumano, if he was British, say, would be a sort of British level heavyweight. That doesn't mean you're a bad heavyweight. You can be involved in some really good fights. You're just not an elite level heavyweight. So when I'm looking at how Kownacki's looked of late, I'm thinking he doesn't get his head off the line, because Cusumano is a big, strong guy. He can really pop here. And so whilst Cusumano is also allergic to head movement, you knew this was going to be a barn burner. And I actually put out a tweet out a couple of days ago to say, I don't know what version of Kownacki we're going to get, but Cusumano will come out swinging. And it's going to be one of those trade fights that's going to provide fireworks for as long as it lasts. And I'm trying to get people to watch this fight because it's gone under the radar. People aren't excited about it. I knew this was going to be a fun fight to watch. And whilst it's natural that the most spoken about fighters, the ones that have the spotlight put on them, are the elite level guys, that's natural, it doesn't mean that you can't have a beautiful scenario with lesser guys. They just paint their artwork differently. They don't paint it with this technical excellence. They paint it with their blood, sweat and tears, and they can still produce something beautiful on a canvas. The power that they're going to produce is going to be top level. They're big heavyweights that are heavy-handed, and the heart that they displayed is going to be top level. They just don't have the other embellishments to go with all that. So whilst they're landing on each other and fighting for their careers, it was a barn burner of a fight. And I felt that the upset was on because Cusumano has the ability to keep it long. Kownacki's a lot better when he comes up close, but in order to come up close, I did know that Cusumano is capable of landing some short power shots too. And as Kownacki was entering early in the pocket and he would be throwing a shot, Cusumano was actually timing him, countering it with a very short right hand. He's not overloading. His hand was almost quite high to start with. And as the shot's coming in, he's just rolling slightly and coming with that right hand down the pipe. And he was landing consistently, just these little short shots and a little short left hook as well. And he really hurt Kownacki in the first round. Dropped him, should have got him out of there. The referee's count lasted a long time. Then the doctor started to wanted to have a look, and they're almost buying time for Kownacki. It looked like they're trying to get him through this. Then he came out in the second round and he looked very good, and Kownacki looked like he was in the ascendancy because Cusumano was looking tired. So you're starting to think, okay, I knew this would be a good fight. This is going to start swinging and roundabouts here. And you saw that you had Cusumano's ability to be able to be a little bit more disciplined after the third, because in the third round as well, Kownacki's trying to put it on him with some foot pressure. And what Cusumano wanted to do was really plant his feet and let his hands go. But because of that foot pressure and the volume of Kownacki, he's generating that foot pressure with forward momentum, and it's forcing Cusumano back, and he's landing some lovely shots to the body as well, Kownacki. So now Cusumano's moving back, he's trying to get air into those lungs of his, he can't set his feet, and he's looking tired. Things aren't looking good for him. But he was able to contain himself, land some big shots, aim to the body, use the jab a little bit more effectively to be able to offset the rhythm of Kownacki, and every now and then he'd be able to land that big thudding right hand, and eventually he was able to break down and get Kownacki out of there. Really fun fight. In terms of Kownacki's future, look, when I've heard him talk of late, to me he sounds a little bit nasally, a little bit heavy with his speech. He's now lost 4 in a row, and he's the sort of fighter who it takes a lot of punishment in fights. I think the people around him now need to say, listen, you gave it a good go. You became a household name among the Polish community in the United States. You were popular. You were on TV, a fan's favorite in terms of the entertainment you brought. You were involved in a couple of fights that had the boxing community talking, but your time's done. It's time to move on. Health is wealth. You know what I mean? Now, when it comes to Cusumano, though, he's obviously not going to retire now. That was the best moment of his career. And I think Eddie Hearn needs to get a little bit creative now, because you've lost Canelo Alvarez, so you're going to seek to build up stars, right? We've spoken about this in the previous video, how they might operate, where they might go. There's roots for Eddie Hearn there, but you also want to have straight up entertainment, and marrying the two, brilliant fights on undercards of superb fighters, is a really nice marriage to have. So I want you to consider Giuseppe Cusumano, Joe Cusumano, the Sicilian Nightmare, against guys like Nathan Gorman or Lucas Rosansky, who's the Bridgerweight title holder that Tony Bellew's talking about fighting. A big power puncher, a little bit small though. How would he cope against Cusumano's size? Nathan Gorman, just to go back to him, very slick boxer. Gorman, he picks his shots very well. You saw him lighten up Wardley early on, but there are question marks always seemingly about his conditioning, and he's not that durable. So how do his slick skills marry up against the sort of heart and aggression and heavy-handed thudding power that Cusumano's going to bring? You've also got Manuel Char, another guy who's a good level operator at European sort of level. Can Cusumano step up to that? You've got Lucas Brown, twilight of his career, but he gave a good account of himself in his last couple of fights, including against Jarrell Miller. He can pick his shots, and we know he's got power. Because he can pick his shots, he will find gaps in Cusumano's defense. But Cusumano's relentlessness is going to bring success against Lucas Brown, who can also be vulnerable. Another big fight, exciting fight. Dempsey McKean, that might be pushing it a little bit too far. I think McKean might have the technical abilities to be able to outbox Cusumano, but Dempsey McKean can be involved in a scrap here or there too. And London Runs Boxing made a suggestion too that just slipped my mind, and that one's Johnny Fisher. He's still up and coming in experience, but we know he can bang. So if they're willing to throw Johnny Fisher in there against a big, crude, but exciting, heavy-handed guy, that could be one that captures the imagination. So I want to see more of Cusumano, even though I recognize he's limited technically. Who would you want to see him in the ring with? Let me know what you think about everything we've spoken about, ladies and gents. Please don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button, a right cross on the subscribe button, and an uppercut on the notifications button. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.